So it's still cutting out a bit, but I'm just trying to keep on going. So there are some of the things that Geogebra can be great for. I've already talked a bit about student-based tasks, but I want to talk about more examples of that now. So what about purely student-based tasks in the classroom? This is a task that I love to do. I call it transformation artwork because it's based on all the transformations, rotations, enlargements, reflections and translations. And the students have to create any picture they want using all of those transformations. So students, some previous students about 5 years ago, created this lovely set of Geogebra birds. But so many great pictures that I could show over the years for this task. It's really creative. What I realised in the first year that I did it is that students were kind of guessing a bit, and I didn't feel like they learned as much mathematics as they thought they would by doing the task. So the next time round, I asked students to make a set of instructions, and I feel like that really based the task on a more mathematical footing and allowed students to really think about efficient explanations with the use of proper terminology. So I think that obviously it's a common theme coming through this workshop is that you can't just think about the task, there's the pedagogy involved in that, and I hope that's becoming somewhat clear already. Here's a completely different task for a higher year group, so investigate just a random function here, record your observations and attempt to mathematically justify them, share your understanding with a partner, and then a crucial bit at the end there is investigating a different function with sliders. So just again providing that further exploration, which is so important when you don't want students just hanging around doing nothing when lots of other people are still investigating. But I have just put a little thing there about class-based discussion first, because for me, if students are investigating something completely by themselves, I want them to kind of share ideas first, and as a class to talk about fruitful directions to go in. So personally, I still want to be able to facilitate the learning in a certain direction. So I would have a discussion first as a whole class as to which functions might be fruitful to investigate. But then if it was a more open investigation, then you might not want to do that. That's your choice. What about tasks online that you can get? Well, if you're a member of the ATM, which I highly recommend, then you'll see some lovely geometry tasks by Diet Markan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It could be Diet Markan. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong. But you'll see some lovely tasks here. Both of them are great. Here, for example, what can you say about the areas of the triangles in this particular context? Well, you can conjecture that the area of the triangles look pretty similar, they look the same. So go on to Geogebra to confirm that conjecture with more examples, and then trying to justify that is exactly what I've been talking about throughout. And here, you can imagine students using sliders for W, and changing W and seeing what happens to the perimeter of that shape. Again, another lovely task there. And then students could go ahead and completely change the shape and investigate that, just to explore further. On that note, one of my appendices, which I put a bit further in the presentation, is developing a kind of vertical alignment of tasks in Geogebra, so that students, when they come to do A-levels or the IB diploma, they really can use it as a problem-solving tool, just like a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet. So I just wanted to put some examples of certain things that I do, not everything, and it'd be great to hear about more things so that I can just add more to that list. That would be amazing. There's a word of caution that I really want to make clear, is that tinkering around with Geogebra and getting comfortable with the software often takes students a lot longer than you'd think. So I use the kind of ×3 rule there. And I would certainly make sure that you give students time to get used to the software before you start asking them to delve into understanding a concept or exploring something, because you don't want them concentrating on the technology rather than the concept. And one thing that I tend to do is in grade 6 or year 7, I actually give them a full lesson just to tinker around with Geogebra and learn whatever they can from it, And then they write everything down on post-it notes, and then they share their learning, and they might present certain parts of GeoGebra that they found to be interesting to each other. And that's, I find, a really good start, a really motivational start. And I don't think a waste of time, because it really helps as they're moving forward with GeoGebra, because they've already come up to a lot of those stop gaps, and they've already sorted those out before they actually do tasks. So I personally think that's really important. Coming to the end of the workshop, I just want to kind of summarise really by talking about what I think of when I'm developing a GeoGebra task or a GeoGebra applet. What are the questions and the kind of framework that I go through to decide what to do there. And it's generally exactly the same as any task in the classroom, really. Is there a better way to display the concept than GeoGebra? Does it fit into a meaningful sequence of learning? So do you start with something concrete and then move into abstraction? Or do you start with something abstract and try to get students to unpick that? Is it efficient in clearly displaying a concept? Too much erroneous information on there, it starts to get pretty difficult to see what you actually want to achieve. Would it be more effective as teacher demonstration or student exploration? Or I should there say teacher and class discussion instead of just teacher demonstration, because that's often what it becomes. And if you do decide student exploration, are students concentrating on the technical aspects of GeoGebra or the actual concept? And have you generated opportunities for further investigation and exploration? So all just normal questions you would ask about any task, but I do find that what I found is that people tend maybe not to ask these questions sometimes when they're using technology or specifically GeoGebra. So that's kind of the end, really, of the main part of the workshop. I'm hoping now that you can think back to the applets that I showed at the start and think about whether they really were good applets and how you could use them in a learning experience during a class to really gain the most out of them. Because it may be that they're not that good. They might look really impressive, but actually do they display concepts well, and do they really improve student learning? I'll let you make your minds up about that. So there's a few more appendices that I just want to point your attention to. I'm not going to say much about, but the CAS view is really is a great view. I tend to like to use the CAS view for kind of student checking mainly, but there are other forms of using it. So I have a laptop out where students can check certain things, but you can use it in a teaching and learning experience if you think about it a lot. So here is an example of using the expanding brackets tool for binomial expansion. So how could you use this within your teaching is something you can think about. The spreadsheet view, maybe for modelling functions. Obviously that's not the only reason you use the spreadsheet view, but it's got some data there and you can find a model function for that by using another command here, or different commands that I've referred to. I've not referred to these commands, but commands in general before. Assessment with GeoGebra. So some people have really good ideas about this, at Tom Button and at Sparks Maths. You might want to follow this link to have a look. I also think that Audrey at @a_mcsquared has a really good point about GeoGebra assessment that you might want to read about on her blog post there. Here's a link to a video in terms of making the Ferris wheel applet that I showed you on the first video, the start of the workshop, so you can take a look at that. And obviously need to finish off with how you move forward with your learning with GeoGebra. There are some really great people to follow. John Golden is a great GeoGebrist. I think he coined that term. And he really does some lovely creative applets. And that's one thing I should mention. There's a really creative side of GeoGebra. It's not just all about teaching and learning. This is what this workshop's been about. But definitely follow John Golden to see some really nice creative applets. And some ones on teaching and learning as well. And Michael Bushes, I think I'm pronouncing that right, again, exactly the same, will really help you out with technical support and make some really cool applets. How I started to learn, I use this blog here, mathandmultimedia.com, and there's lots of lessons on there that really get you into it. I think that it might be getting a bit old now, but I'm pretty sure the lesson's still on there and still very, very helpful. And how I continue to learn, this is a really important point, essentially through analysing other people's applets using something called the construction protocol, which I'll show you in a second. Where to find command terms? there you can go on to this site here that shows you the update construction command, random between command, lots and lots of different commands. There's actually hundreds, and it's a really interesting thing to go and take a look at all the commands so you can see what's available to you in terms of scripting. So just to show you the construction protocol to end things off, here's a random applet. If you go to View and Construction Protocol, then where's that? Maybe it's behind us somewhere. No, it's not. Maybe I just didn't click it right. So View, Construction Protocol, here we go. And it's basically just an ingredients list of everything within the applet. And also what's nice about it is you kind of see like the most important parts of the applet and how they were made. So you can see here there are 66 different things, and not necessarily in the same order the person did them in, but I found this really helpful to learn about really important parts of people's applets and to progress my understanding. So hopefully that gives you a way in which you can continue and make some more interesting applets if you feel like you have the time. If you don't have the time, then you've got lots of support, you've got Geogebra Tube, and you don't necessarily need to be an expert to devise a really good learning experience. You just need to think about what is good learning and how can I differentiate from my learners. So I hope that a lot of that stuff was common sense. I think it was. I think I was just outlining stuff that people already know. But if you have anything more to add, more developments with Geogebra and things, then I'd love to hear about them in the comments or maybe through Twitter. I'm sorry that it's been a bit bitty with like 4 different, I think we'll probably be 4 different videos, but hopefully you've still been reasonably coherent and got something out of it. So thanks a lot.